Hi, welcome to episode 3 of the Dugout Dad's Local Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Hughes, with my co-host,
Jonathan Parker.
Where our skills are questionable,
but our spirit is unstoppable.
We want to start tonight. We want to thank our sponsors right off the bat tonight. Our title sponsor this year, once again, is Kobe McKinney with Underwood Realty. We appreciate Kobe and what he does for our show here. Hashtag Hollies is our Dugout Dad's Player of the Week. She does that for us, Jonathan. And then Infinity Promotions, who does all of our apparel and our gear that you see now. We now have a new backdrop behind us. We appreciate Infinity Promotions for doing that, and our tablecloth here.
Absolutely, Michael. And, week 1 of college football kicks off this week. And, of course, we're into week 2 of high school. A lot of exciting action. And, man, I can't wait to get to talking about this.
Yeah, we think about this time of the year. It is really, football is finally really back, right? Middle school kicked off, high school is going. We're in week 2 of high school football, and now week 1 of college football. There's no better time of the year, in my opinion.
No better time. The weather's changed a little bit. It's cooler outside, and, man, I'm excited.
A little sneak preview of tonight's show. We're going to have Smith County head coach Matt Dyer be on tonight. Coach John Gammons from the middle school. We'll have him back on next week, and I'll discuss our middle school action this week. And then we'll talk a little bit of Gornsville football at the end of our show tonight. But, Jonathan, you'll go ahead and start with our scores of the week.
Yeah, so recapping week 2 of high school football, we had Beach with a 29-0 win over Mount Juliet. Of course, Beach led by former Smith County Owl, Caden Powell, and Kentucky baseball signee, so a big win there. Friendship with a big 50-48 win over Fayetteville. Jackson County 21-14 over Midway. Lebanon 35-2 over Siegel. Macon County with a big win, 35-15 over Westmoreland. Whites Creek beat Trousdale County 40-10. Livingston Academy, of course, this week's Smith County opponent, beat Warren County 38-3. White House beat DeKalb 2013 in a close battle. And, of course, our 2 local schools here, Clay County beat Smith County 14-7, and then Gornsville gets a big win over Watertown 17-6. So a lot of good scores, and not to forget the middle school on Tuesday beat Gordonsville 30-6 in a really good ball game.
Yeah, that's where we'll start tonight. We'll go ahead and go into the middle school segment of our program here tonight. And Gordonsville comes across the river, and they come in and they come into the hole. Always a great matchup, right? Because all these kids play with each other, especially at this young age, right? They know each other. They're friends with each other. They game with each other. They play baseball with each other all summer long. And then you have the inter-county matchup of the middle school programs. And we did come out with a 30-6 win this week. It's a good, hard-fought matchup, right? But, it's always good to get that win over your rival, right? And, as far as the standings go in our conference and their conference, you really don't mean much. But bragging rights for the season and for the county is pretty big for these kids.
Absolutely. The in-county matchup, the first one is the middle school game. It was a really good ball game. Gornsville shot themselves in the foot several times with, a penalty here and several missed costly turnovers there. And then, you guys come out, hit them in the mouth with a couple of pass plays. And kudos to Colton Jenkins. He really played a really good ball game at quarterback and kind of, held the tempo all night long.
And I went back and I listened to the broadcast that Terry Collins and Mark Medley did for the radio station the next day. And, you talk about football coaches and the knowledge of the game. And Coach Mark Medley was on there, and he said a couple of times that, he talked about our team, and, we're kind of deadly in our skill position. We got a lot of speed, and first play of the game, he said, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Owls go for 80 yards and a touchdown. Well, first play of the game, we go for 80 yards and a touchdown. Then you sit there and you listen to him a little bit more, and he talks about we score on a quarterback keeper in the second quarter there, and Jenkins goes around the right side for a touchdown from about 50 yards out. Coach Mark Miller, he goes, you look what the Owls did, and they had them outnumbered out there. It's good to hear that kind of those people talk, and those coaches come in, and Coach Mark Medley on that broadcast, and Terry Collins, they do a wonderful job. But to give these kids a little bit of kudos, and looking at a little bit of the stats from the game, I don't have any. I do have G-Bill stats as well, but you look at Smith County stats on the game itself. We have 289 yards of total offense. And you look at a middle school team, or middle school game, 300 yards of offense, close to it. It's pretty electric.
Absolutely. And, that's where it starts. You've got to put points on the board, and that's where you're going to get it offensively.
Yeah, and you look at it, we look at Colton Jenkins, he throws for over 100 yards for, I think, the second or third week in a row. He has a good game there. He rushes for, what do we have there? He rushes for 183 yards and a touchdown. He has 83 yards and a touchdown rushing. And then Justin Antonio has 81 yards and a touchdown. Or 81 yards, I'm sorry.
And when you can get production like that from multiple players, it's just easier offensively to get things going.
And you look at on the receiving side of things, Hagen Starnes has 2 touchdowns and 92 yards rushing. But then you flip over and you look at Gornsville stats. Their little running back, Caden Potter, is probably one of the better middle school running backs that I've seen in a long time here. He has 27 carries for 172 yards. So when it comes down to it, we didn't really have an answer for him, right? He had a really great night running the ball for the Tigers, but man, what a great atmosphere just to have the middle school and have everybody over there at the high school, and having all the crowd come out and support these guys was pretty good night.
Oh, absolutely, and to piggyback off of Potter, it looked like at times that Smith County didn't want to tackle him because he was hitting the hole hard, he was running hard, and there was a couple of times he delivered the punch to the Smith County defense.
Yeah, he did, and he's a great little athlete. They're a well-coached team over there with Adam Shaw and Steven Jackson and the group they have. It's a great team over there, and I'm sure they'll do damage in their conference this year. But congratulations to our Smith County Middle School Owls for a win Tuesday night. And this week we go up to All Good to play them. Then Gornsville has Trousdale County over in the Jungle.
Absolutely, and Trousdale coming over there, it's going to be electric. That's all I can say.
It is going to be electric. That'll be a pretty good night over there. And Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Booster Club is streaming that game. It'll be live on the Tiger Football Booster Club page for them to do that. But so we're going to swap gears here. And we're going to move over to our high school talk now. We're going to talk about the Smith County Owls and the Clay County matchup, where Clay County comes into the hole, gets a 14-7 win over the Owls. But, going back and watching, Jonathan, you was there live. I was watching it as I was headed down to Atlanta to watch the Big Orange whip up on Syracuse. But the Owls had chances, right? They had chances once again. They shot themselves in the foot a couple of times, and we'll talk to Coach Matt Dyer about that here in just a bit. But Clay County had a good game plan, right? They was going to rush the ball, and they carried the ball for a lot of yards. They had over 200 yards rushing on the night, with their quarterback leading the way with 135 yards and 29 carries. Right, a quarterback carrying about 29 carries is a lot.
Absolutely, and we talked about last week that week 1 to week 2 growth. We looked at Clay County. They played a team out of Kentucky. They get shut out. You forget about the fact that they didn't have Nate Adams week 1, the quarterback, and man, he was everything and then some Friday night. We just had a hard time stopping him. They had a great game plan. They came to the hole. They hit us in the mouth. And man, he's a really impressive. Him and the number 9, I guess it's his brother, cousin, nephew, whatever. Another Adams kid. They go for almost 200 yards themselves. Very impressive, and they're going to be a problem in that 1A classification.
Yeah, but you look at it too. You look at Smith County; they didn't rush the ball very well, Friday night. But look at the passing attack, and Riley Martin goes for over 238 yards, 230 yards passing. And then, Cole Hackett has a big, long 90-yard touchdown for the Owls. And, so it's a big play. They have a big play capability. But this looked like Friday night that Clay County really had a good game plan coming in.
Absolutely. And the game plan was to play keep away. You look at Smith County's possessions in the second half, they only had 4. And, you can't have only 4 possessions. And you've got to maximize every time you have the ball. And defensively, Clay County was just there pushing our line. They just they came out with a really great game plan to stop us, stop our run. They saw what Rain's done the week before. They held him in check. And so kudos to Clay County, and man, I'm anxious to see how they go the rest of the season.
Yeah, and for the listeners who don't know, most of you guys do know, but a high school football game is 48 minutes. And if I'm not mistaken, Clay County's time of possession was over 30 minutes.
Yes.
And if you're controlling the ball that much, you're going to take a kind of a prolific offense like Smith County can have at times and shut them down because they don't get the ball enough.
Absolutely.
So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring in Smith County High School head coach Matt Dyer. We're going to bring him up and let him. We'll talk a little bit about Friday night's game.
Hello, sir.
Guys, we're doing all right.
Doing good. How are you?
Doing good, brother.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll just hold it.
Yep, just holding it tonight. Yep.
We're going to get better over the course of time.
Oh, it's in there. It's secured.
So, Coach Dyer, once again, we appreciate you coming out, doing this every week with us. We enjoy doing this. We enjoy having you come on. Week 1 to week 2, we get a win in week 1, we get a loss in week 2. So it's always more exciting when you come in on those win weeks. But we want to bring you in on the lost weeks too, just to talk about it just a little bit.
Well, the biggest thing is always hindsight on the games you lose, which as a coach, you always go back and you look at the what ifs, decisions, win or lose. You're always like, man, if we'd have done this, if we'd have done that. So, they always multiply after a loss because you go back, you replay all the scenarios, you replay every series, every down, every play. And we had our coaches meeting today, and big thing that stands out is 6 plays. 6 plays in that ball game that kind of changed the course of it was the 4 downs that we had the ball at 1st and goal on the 3-yard line on our opening drive, and we did not punch it in. So you had 1st and goal from the 3, 2nd and goal from the 3, 3rd and goal from the 3, 4th and goal from the 3. So those 4 plays, and then we had a 3rd and 2 and a 4th and 1 on back-to-back on a offensive possession where we did not get a first down when we were around midfield. So like those 6 plays right there, changed the trajectory of that game. Because 1, you take a score off the board that you're not able to punch in. And then 2, you don't get to extend a drive on 2 chances to get 2 yards. And then a couple other plays, that you go back and you just kind of think about was the 3rd and 4 that we're going in. We had a pretty nice drive together. We had just connected on a big pass play, like you mentioned earlier. We had explosive chunk plays in that game, but we were just not consistent enough moving the ball. And we've talked about that before in the preseason. We could not continuously rely on big explosive chunk plays. At some point, we're going to have to be methodical. We're going to have to be consistent with our offensive production, and we did not do that Friday night. But we on the 3rd and 4, we threw the interception at the 1-yard line. So we had 2 scoring opportunities wiped out by turnovers, and that could have been changes of the game. Now, another play that we talked about in our coaches meeting, which you never want to say, the refs did this, refs did that, or you got hosed here, got hosed there, because we always tell our guys, like, if you want to complain about it, you shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with, that the game relied on that. But it still stings when you go back when there was a minute 22 on the clock in the second quarter right before halftime, and we got them into a 4th and 3. We called a timeout. They are coming out to punt or quick punt like they did earlier, and their left tackle sprints 18 yards down field, and they complete a pass at 9 yards. And we never got an explanation on why that was not. Get wild. They must be here to listen to you guys. They go. But anyway, he's 17 yards downfield. The ball is caught at about 10, and we never got an explanation on that. But like I said, that could have been huge because we had 2 timeouts with a minute 22 on the clock, and we could have got the ball around midfield or at least on our 40. But ands, coulds, whats, and all that. But that was a big moment in the game where we at least could have had a scoring opportunity before halftime. But once again, if you don't get in that position, it's not left up to that call. Instead of getting a 4th and 3, we should have made a tackle on 2nd and 10, to not allow them to pick up 4 or 5 yards. But anyway, we had a lot of chances, a lot of opportunities in that game to capitalize, and we did not make those plays that we needed to make. And like you said, hindsight, biggest thing, someone asked me, well, what would you, I think it was Coach Loftus. I talked to him. He was like, what would you do different? I said, well, first off, we probably should have thrown the ball 50 times. We knew that they were going to have 8, 9 guys in the box and they're stacked or they're odd or they're even look, and they were going to force us to throw the ball. And we took advantage of it sometimes. Right out the gate, we had the big completion to Blevins. Later in the half, we had the completion to Cornwall. And I think we had a big one to Gage, maybe late in the game. And, of course, the big, 80, 90-yard throw to Cole. We should have just kept throwing the ball. We should have kept taking what they were giving us out on the perimeter. Corners playing, 10 yards off. We should have just been happy with that. And, that's on me. That's my fault. We tried to establish a run game. Why? I don't know. But as a coach, that's on you. You're supposed to be, take advantage of what they give you, and I didn't do that. So that's my fault. But hindsight, should have just thrown the ball a lot more. Even if we had thrown it 50 times, so what? Move the chains, find a way to gain extra possessions. And then another hindsight, when we go up 7-6 after the big play to Cole, we got into a 4th and 5, I believe, on our 45-yard line, and we elected to punt, and we gave up the big return. They nearly returned it to the first down marker. Hindsight says, well, we should have just went ahead and gone for it. We, just thrown the ball, incomplete, stopped the clock, maybe, I don't know, but could have got a first down, could have maybe continued to move the ball, don't know. So those are the what-ifs you look at and the things that you could have changed, but you can't. So now we're working on leagues. That's what we're working on right now. Plays in the rearview mirror. They're going to be a good team. Coach Lamb does a great job. Best of luck to them, but now we're on the leagues.
And, from my perspective, I don't want to go back to it, but they didn't surprise you with anything. You knew what they were going to come in with, and they come in and said, here we are.
Yeah, we knew 1 and 9, that those were their workhorses. We knew both of the Adams kids was what they were going to rely on. They were going to show us a bunch of funky formations. We were well prepared for that. That's what I was asking Coach Harv. I said, after doing our grades and everything, I said, I know we didn't tackle well, and we didn't get off blocks, but did we at least get lined up right to all their different formations? He said, I believe we did. So, silver lining, we got lined up right. We just did not stop them when we needed to. We didn't make the tackles that we needed to. We didn't make the plays that we needed to. And, when we had contact either at the line of scrimmage in the backfield and they still would gain 4, 5, 6 yards, that created a problem for us. Like you said, their quarterback ran the ball, I think, 29 times, and he very rarely went backwards. So, that's on us as a team. We got to tackle better. We got to gang tackle better, and we can't allow 1 to 2 yard gains turn into 5 and 6 yard gains, which happened a lot, where they had a lot of 2nd and 4s, 2nd and 5s that should have been 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9s. But that's something we're going to work on this week, better tackling, getting off blocks, and getting to the football.
Yeah, and I look at, we go into from week 1 to week 2, and the penalty bug hit us again, right? The penalty bug got us. You had 8 for 91 yards, so almost 100 yards in penalties, and that's 2 weeks in a row. And I know you guys work on that. I know it's, coming from a coach's mind, I know that's something you guys harp on a lot. But what do we do to fix that going into week 3?
Well, the biggest thing that added to that total were the PIs. We had 4 penalties right there. I mean, that was 15 yards a pop right there. And going back and watching the film, the pass interferences were all on 4th down except for 1. Wow. 3 of them were on 4th down. 1 was on 3rd down. And like you said, you got to be more disciplined. You got to be more accountable. And, we're going to continue to work on that and fix that. Were they good calls, bad calls? It don't matter. I know we want to argue about some of them. It's like, well, our guy's entitled to that space. He was in front of the receiver. How could he have pushed off? You can write all these scenarios down, but it all comes back down to don't put yourself in that situation, and you don't allow that position, to be made by a referee, be in better defensive position, get a better pass rush, do whatever you can to not allow that to happen. And, give it up to the Adams kid. He threw the ball. He could have very well just held on to it, took a sack or ran away, scrambled, but he gave his guy a shot, 50-50 ball, and it ended up in their favor where even if it was incomplete, all of them were, you get 15 yards on the penalty. So, that's a good job by him. But, yeah, we got to clean up on the penalties because we can't keep going backwards, and, we got to cut down on the negative yardage plays. We got way too many times where we're 1st and 10 turns into a 2nd and 15, or we're 2nd and 8 and it turns into a 3rd and 20. So penalties and negative yardage plays are putting us way behind on the schedule and getting behind the chains, behind the sticks. And we got to work on that. We got to fix that.
And Coach, week one, you're very balanced, running the ball, throwing the ball. We threw the ball great Friday night, but running the ball seemed to be difficult on Friday night. Did they show you anything defensively, or what have we got to do to get these linemen pushing these kids down the field a little bit better?
They didn't show us anything that we wasn't expecting. They stayed in their even front a whole lot. We just had a couple of missed assignments, MAs, where either block the wrong guy or you come off your down block too early, or one guy slips, falls. That's the greatest thing about football compared to other sports. If you don't have all 11 guys doing what they're supposed to do, it can end up a bad go. And we give our guys grief that are multiple sport athletes all the time. Not that I'm against it. I love our guys playing other sports. But I tell Riley all the time. I tell Cole, I know he's here. I was like, dadgum, in baseball, you could be a center fielder, never get the ball hit till you go 0 for 4, and you can still win, 10-0. You literally did nothing. In basketball, you could have a guy not touch the ball all game, and you could win, big time or whatever. In football, if you have one guy that doesn't block his assignment, correct, usually it could lead to a dadgum bad play. And it did a lot. Where we had a left tackle not down blocking, or a right tackle not sitting in his pass protection, or a running back, blocking the wrong person in pass protection. If you don't have 11 guys on the same page doing their job, and that's the biggest thing we're going to re-emphasize this week, do your job. If you do your job, we'll be all right. Do what your coach will do, we'll be all right. But a lot of times sack yardage goes into the rushing yardage. So that kind of negates a lot of that. I think we had 4 sacks. For like minus 50-something yards.
Yep.
So that cuts down a lot of your rushing yardage right there. But we did not block very well, and it also goes to our backs. If you continue to work lateral instead of getting your shoulder pads north and south, that space is going to close up, especially when you got a free safety like the Adams kid who can run the alley and fill the alley. A lot of times that guy is not accounted for in your blocking box. Whether you're blocking number 1 back or number 2 back or gap down backer on anybody on the line of scrimmage, you're not accounting for a free safety 15 yards off the ball. Well, when you continue to work lateral and that guy's filling the alley, he's going to make that play. So you either got to make him miss, run over him, or outrun him, and we didn't do that very well. So, we don't change a lot of what we do. We just got to get back to doing more fundamentals, getting the little things right, whether stepping with your inside foot on a down block, or getting vertical movement on your down block, or getting your hat across, or on our double team not coming off at the point of attack, or your combo block actually coming off and getting onto that linebacker. We got to do those things better. And then also as a running back standpoint, it's not like it is in middle school or youth league where you might be the fastest guy on the field and you just beat everybody at the edge every time. Yep. You're going to have to run where we're blocking it. If we're running buck sweep and we're kicking guys out on the edge, you can't run to the edge. We're not blocking out there. You got to hit off tackle. If we're running counter, you got to get to A gap. You can't try to bounce it outside where we're not blocking anybody. So our backs got to do better. Our linemen's got to do better. And, just as a general, everybody's got to do their job. So,
before we go to our player of the week segment and move on to Livingston, Coach, we do our Ask the Coach session, right? We put it out there, and anybody want to ask a question, I didn't have but one this week. And
Coach, do you know what a football is? Get one of those. Yeah,
it wasn't
a long shake, I think. I'm not real sure.
It wasn't that question this week. The question this week, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, was actually about the injury front. You had a couple kids come back from injury, it looks like, and how healthy are you coming out of this game going into next week? I know we can't talk about exactly what injuries, but how healthy is the team?
We're actually really healthy. We got a couple of nicks and bruises, but I think what we talked about like 2 weeks ago, that once week 1 hits, you're never 100% truly healthy. Once you start banging and putting the pads on and hitting each other, you got the nicks, the bruises, the soreness. So it's kind of like, a health meter that slowly depletes over the course of a season. It's how comfortable are you with being uncomfortable? Can you play through the pain? Are you hurt? Are you injured? All those old cliches. But that's the biggest thing. But no, other than that, we are relatively healthy. We got Caden Mason back this week. He ran a few plays last Friday night. He got cleared by Mr. Lee Rice, our athletic trainer, so he's going to be good to go this week. He's a full go. Other than that, I don't think we were out anybody that had not been able to play, but we get some bodies back this week, and we are healthy this week going into Livingston. So, yeah.
And, Coach, turning to that game, week 3, you look at them, they've scored 88 points. And what have you seen from them so far? It looks like they're offensively driven. I'm not sure their competition that they've played, but talk about them a little bit.
They're more of a spread team. They don't play with a tight end a whole lot. A lot of 11 personnel. One back, one sniffer, not a tight end, but they use the back and the sniffer that some count as a tight end, like an H back, I guess. They go a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, They don't go hurry up, but they do a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage. The quarterback and the coach, they're doing a lot of check with me's, kind of seeing what the defense is lined up in. They want to get themselves in the best call possible. So we just got to be able to get lined up and kind of communicate with our sideline as well to make sure we're not tipping our hand on anything. But yeah, they're very explosive offensively. They're a little geared more towards throwing the ball than running the ball with the films that we've got. When they do run it, they're not as good running the ball as they're throwing the ball. They like to get the ball to the perimeter. Their two best players are probably their two outside receivers that they use. They're fast, they're explosive, they're pretty big. They do a good job of getting the ball to those guys in space and letting them make plays. And when you go back and watch the films, it's those two guys that are creating a lot of explosive plays that are putting a bunch of points up on the board for them. Defensively, they do a good job of getting to the football. And they do a good job of kind of getting other teams behind schedule, behind the sticks, and forcing them into kind of uncomfortable situations to where, if they get down 2 or 3 scores, kind of getting away what they're good at. So the biggest thing is that we got to do to counter that is we've got to have a balanced attack. We got to keep them on their heels. We're going to have to try to run the ball a little bit. But, like I said, if we can't and we got to throw the ball 50 times, we'll throw the ball 50 times. If that's what they're going to give us, then that's what we're going to do. And like I said, as a coaching staff, we got to do a better job of that, of taking what an opposing team gives us. But it'll be a good game. Livingston being a 4A team, new coach, a lot of hype around them, 2 big wins for them. We get them at home, so that's a plus. We get them in the hole. But it's going to be a good game, explosive game, a very competitive game, playing a bigger classification school.
And Coach, we look forward to being there Friday night. Everybody come out to the hole, be excited, be rowdy, be loud. These players love that, right? And Coach, and I'm sure Cole will echo it too. He's here as well. But the kids love when the crowd is full. The crowd's there, the stadium's full, and it's loud. Come out and support these young men. Even if you don't like football, come and support these guys. Just be there and show up for them.
Oh yeah, it's never fun when you can hear a pin drop or you can hear somebody yelling in a stadium. That's not fun. Go there, get loud, get rowdy. We've got season passes, we've got student passes. It's a fun event. I know our quarterback club does a great job with our concessions. You can go there, get supper. You're going to see a fireworks show. It's a great event to be a part of. So, and like you said, not only players, coaches love it too. We love it. I don't really hear a lot of stuff that goes on behind me, but I can tell when the crowd's kind of hyped and, especially a good student section. Anytime you get a good student section, that's what's really can get some, excitement and kind of lightning in the air, But, yeah, come on out, support these guys, watch them get wild, get rowdy, and just cheer and have a big time, have fun, bring the family.
And coming from the guy who runs the Jumbotron, that he would love fan participation when he's doing our third down for what and our third down chance. I would really love that.
And that was kind of one of the reasons behind getting that thing, making it an event, make it an atmosphere, make it something that's fun to come see and come join, So, yeah, hopefully we get a bunch of people out there and get loud and get rowdy.
And come see me at the baseball concession stand. We'll be selling concessions down below. So, and support the baseball program.
What all got going down there? Barbecue.
We'll have cheese sticks, chicken strips.
There you go.
Snow cones.
Like
come see me.
Get supper. Fill your belly up. Have a big time.
And Coach, this week, our Dugout Dash Player of the Week, we selected Cole Hackett this week. So, talk a little bit about congratulations first off to Cole for being selected as a Dugout Dash Player of the Week, sponsored by #Hollies and Be the Gift. But Coach, talk about the program so far in week 1 and week 2.
Well, the biggest thing, I come in and he didn't have any food in front of him over there. So I told him he's going to have to start eating some more. I figured he already ate before I got here, but he said he was going to go eat somewhere else. So, hopefully he can order some food or something before he can talk. I don't know. But no, seriously, Cole, he got to start a little bit as a freshman, and it wasn't because of shortage of bodies. It was in that 23 season when we won the region against East Robertson. It was because of his talent and because of his football IQ. He's very smart when it comes to football knowledge, and he's one of our better playmakers on both sides of the ball. A lot of times we can always count on where Cole's going to be, what Cole's going to do, whether it's offense or defense. He's a very athletic young man. He's fast. He catches the ball well. He plays the ball well on defense. But the biggest thing is he's like having another coach on the field, whether it's defense or whether it's offense. If he's in the back end on the secondary, and we talked about that in coaches meeting today, he's basically in charge of 5 guys out there. He's in charge of the corners, the safeties, our star, and we can count on him to get those guys lined up, and he can be vocal, and he can coach those guys on the fly. Because like I said, it's like having another coach on the field. And we're blessed this year because we got 3 guys that are like that. We've got Cole on the back end, and we got Ben Howe, and we got Rustin Kemp on the front end. So it's like having 3 extra coaches out there that can get guys lined up, they can get calls, they're going to be vocal, and they're going to talk, and they're going to communicate, which anytime you're on defense, that's a +1, to help you. When you got guys that will talk and communicate, if you got guys out there that are just a bunch of deaf mutes and don't talk to each other, you never know what's going to happen, But when you got guys talk and communicate, make sure so-and-so's lined up here or there, what coverage we're in, and, what their job is, that's what Cole does. That's what he brings to the table. And he's already proved it, through his 3 years of high school so far. As a freshman, he got to come in and he got to play against Upperman the year that they went to the state championship game, played a very great game in that. I think he weighed like 98 pounds, soaking wet. And he tackled.
He's like 101 now.
He's gained a little bit. It depends on what he eats, before he comes to practice in ways. But no, he came in and made some big plays against the Chaffin kid and against the Polk kid. Both of those dudes were monsters. Polk weighed like 200 pounds and Chaffin was like 220. But, it didn't phase him. Clayton Rigsby got hurt in that game, and he had to come in and play safety. And then he started as a sophomore playing that safety spot. He ended up winning defensive back of the region, with us and East Rob and a bunch of other good teams in 2A. And he's a natural playmaker, and he's a natural athlete. Like I said, it's both sides of the ball, offense and defense. But, I'm proud that he got this award for Player of the Week. I'm proud of what he does on the field, what he does during practice, and glad that he's a part of our team.
Well, Coach, good luck this week. We're going to bring Cole on to discuss with him, but good luck this week against Livingston.
Guys, appreciate
Thanks,
y'all.
Coach. Appreciate you.
Man. All right.
That was Coach Matt Dyer here for the high school. We appreciate Coach Dyer and what he brings to this show every week, and just just to have Coach Dyer come on, Jonathan, and his knowledge, we really appreciate that. But Cole, welcome to the show. First off, congratulations for being selected as the Dugout Dads Player of the Week. Once again, sponsored by #Hollies to be the gift. But hey, heck of a season so far, sir.
Thank you.
So, Cole, talk about your season so far. I've heard your name called, been to both games. You're all over the field so far. So, talk about your first 2 games and how the season's going so far.
So against Watertown, we had a good game plan going in. We knew what they were going to do. Coach Harv always puts a good game plan together on defense, and on offense, we had a couple explosive plays that really put us ahead. But most of all, we had a big game by Dylan Raines where they just couldn't tackle him, and our line got a good push. So that game was taken care of by the line and Dylan, and a pretty good defense game.
So Friday night, how exciting, and what did you and Riley, how were you and Riley able to connect on that 90-yard touchdown pass?
Before you answer that, though, let me ask this question because that's where I was going to. So how many times do you go in the huddle and say, Riley, I'm open? Now throw me the ball, I'm open, no matter if you're open or not, before you answer that question?
Yeah, I do that pretty often, actually.
Sorry, Jonathan, didn't mean to.
That's the exact answer I was expecting. So talk to us a little bit about that 90-yard. Was it a broken play? Was it a design play?
So we were way behind the sticks. I think it was like 2nd and 32 or something like that. We were backed up against our own end zone. And so everybody knew we needed a big play. And Coach Reed, it was a design play. That's exactly what we wanted to do, and that's where he wanted the ball thrown. So Riley made a good play by stepping up in the pocket and throwing it way out there and let me run under it.
So that's 2 weeks in a row you've had a big receiving play, right? I think you had one against Watertown, then one against Clay County. But talk about defensively, 2 picks in 2 weeks, is that right? So
Yes,
talk
sir.
about a little bit defensively. Has the game slowed down for you? I'm sure it has from your freshman year to your junior year. Are you seeing it a little slower now than you did a couple years ago?
Yes, sir, I have. So on defense, getting lined up is the biggest thing. If I can get myself in the right spot, and leverage is a big thing. If I can get leverage on the offensive guys, then I can put myself in a good position to make a play on the ball.
So how exciting is it? You look over and you see 23, which is your baby brother.
Yeah.
How exciting is it to get to play, to get to start with your baby brother?
It's pretty fun. He doesn't say much back there. He just
Really?
looks at me and nods his
Walker not
head.
say anything?
No, he doesn't say anything.
So for me, Cole, I'm just going to go complete off the football topic here. And for all the listeners out there, if you don't have a Cole Hackett in your life, you're missing out. And I mean, I'll tell you why. It's because it's not his football IQ. It's not what he does on the field. It's how humble a kid he is and respectful kid to anybody and everybody that's around him. And that's kudos to his mom and dad. But, Cole, that's what I see, and I appreciate more than anything you do on the football field is how respectful you are to everybody that you're around. And, I greatly appreciate that more than you do anything on the football field.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's more than any compliment I could have, sports related.
Well, Cole, good luck this week. We know you guys are going to flush last week. Get ready for this week. So look forward to another 90-yard touchdown this week against Livingston.
Yes, sir.
Let's give Cole his shirt. Let's get a picture here, Mr. Enier, if you don't care. Hold that side. Once again, Cole, hey, congratulations for being selected. And I know Coach Dyer, man, he'd love to have 11 Cole Hacketts on the field, if I'm not mistaken. So congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
But Jonathan, and I'm being serious when I say that about Cole. He is a super kid, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring that up and talk about that just a little bit.
Absolutely.
He's just what a wonderful kid in general.
Well, there's more to life than just football. And you're absolutely right. The respect that he has, the respect that he gives, it's just a testament to his mom and dad.
It is. So, once again, Livingston comes into the hole this Friday night. Come out and support the Smith County Owls. And, we look forward to hoping Smith County gets back on the winning track this week. And, Jonathan, let's talk about Gornsville just for a couple minutes here, and then we'll close out the show. But, hey, Gornsville has Watertown come into the jungle this week. A good game, a good rivalry game, and we talked about this. I talked about me and actually Mark Sampson talked about this. You talk about it a little bit when we were in school. Watertown was one of those rivals, right? We talk about it. There was a rival. You beat them quite often back in the old days, but then you had more of the Travisville County, Smith County rivalry back when I played in high school. But now, the way Watertown has turned the program around, the Gornsville-Watertown rivalry has become, pretty huge.
Absolutely. And, I saw from a couple others that it really wasn't a rivalry up until the last few years to where Watertown got a little better. Some of those kids moved out in the area in Wilson County, and Watertown has been a force in Wilson County for the last few years. And, they're kind of hit the struggle bus a little bit so far this season. But they come into the jungle over there and played Gornsville really tough. I kept up with it, during the Smith County game. I was watching it, and, it's 10-0 going into the fourth quarter. And it looked to me like Watertown had a really good game plan. A few more plays made by some skill position players for Gornsville helped get them over the hump against Watertown.
It did, and before we even get back into the game and like that, but you look at Gornsville comes out in a new alternate gray uniform.
Look good.
I was shocked when I saw the gray uniforms because I know old school heads. You talk about we're blue and white. We got the G on our helmets, but I tell you what, the gray uniforms to me look pretty good. I actually liked it. I thought it was a good look for the Tigers and the play. Mr. Eniard, who actually works with the Booster Club video over there, said that the players picked the gray uniforms.
That's awesome. They looked really good. They popped on screen, and it's one of those things. It excites the kids. The new uniforms. You look at all the college teams and how many uniforms they have. It's just an exciting thing that players enjoy, that players like.
You're looking at the game itself. Jay Foster comes out and has a pretty good game this week. He goes 11 for 18 for 188 yards and a touchdown. Waylon Kennedy with over 100-yard receivings and 5 catches. Turner Booker once again has a great night running the ball in place of Jamario Williams, who's injured at the moment. But they put up some offensive stats. They had 350 yards total to Watertown's 180.
Yep. That tells the story, and it was a balanced attack. They had 160 on the ground, 180 in the air. So that balanced attack. Now, the one knock I'm going to give them is you look like we talked about with Coach Dyer. They had 9 penalties for 77 yards. It's early in the season. We know the coaches are going to get that straightened out, but it has to be a point of emphasis moving forward because you're going to get into some close ball games late when you're going to have a 5-yard false start penalty or a holding penalty that's going to cost you the game.
And you look at, the only score in the third period was a Gavin Kemp 30-yard field goal.
Yes.
And, having a field goal kicker, and you talk about 1A and 2A ball, you go for two a lot,
Yes.
right? You go for two a lot, but in the case for both of our local high schools, with Coach Dyer with the Pickett kid and then Kemp at Gornsville, they both got kickers that they can rely on to go in and kick those medium range field goals if they need them.
And, you look at it in high school, a kicker is a weapon. It's overlooked sometimes in that smaller classification, but, I've watched numerous high school football games. If you've got a kicker and maybe we don't necessarily have a kicker that can get at the end zone, but if you get a high school kicker that can get at the end zone and make a team go 80 yards, it's a huge advantage. And if you've got a kid like Gavin and like the Pickett kid that can make field goals for you, those are points when you get down there, on fourth down. Hey, you're not afraid to put up 3 points. And sometimes those 3 points can make a difference.
And you look at it, you go in, if he don't kick that field goal, it's 7-0 going into the fourth quarter.
Yes.
So those 3 points, give you that extra cushion in case you do give up a couple touchdowns. You still have that 3-point lead.
You're going to make a mistake. It is what it is. Good teams don't make the same mistake twice, but you're going to make mistakes. You're going to let that kid get behind you a couple of times. So being able to extend the lead is always a great thing.
And next week, congratulations to the Tigers first on that win. They are now 2-0 on the season right now. So next week they go to Fayetteville.
Yes.
Fayetteville's 0-2 right now, but Fayetteville's always have a pretty good little football team. So the Tigers going out to Fayetteville face a little stiff competition this week.
Well, and you look at Fayetteville, they played Friendship Christian this past Friday night. They put up 48 points. They put up 25 points in their first game. So, they're putting up points. They got beat 50-48 on Friday night. So, I've not seen Fayetteville, know nothing about them, but clearly they can score the football.
Yeah, and congratulations to those guys once again, and good luck this week to the Tigers, and go out and get win 3 if you can. But Jonathan, we'll finish out the show. Let's talk a little college football. Tennessee is back. Oh, I'm sorry. We got Player of the Week. That's our producer, and that's why he's here. Our Player of the Week, Jonathan, go ahead and announce that if you want to.
Our Player of the Week for Gornsville is Waylon Kennedy. So Waylon will be over the next few days to get you your shirt. So congratulations. Great game. And go do that this week in Fayetteville.
That's why you have a producer, right? You don't read your notes and he tells you what you need to do, right? So Matt Inyer, we appreciate you being our producer here to keep us on task. But now, talk about the Big Orange, and the Big Orange come back to play this week. Tennessee goes 1-0, goes down to Atlanta, and I happen to, appreciate my wife for hooking us up with some tickets there. So we go down to Atlanta in the Mercedes-Benz Dome and watch Tennessee play, and they beat Syracuse in Georgia. 45 to 26, 45 to 26. But you look at Tennessee going, they come out 1-0, and Tennessee offensively looks really good. They look really good. They trade Aguilar for Nico Iamaleava, and he goes to UCLA, and we'll take Aguilar here. And after watching Nico play last night, I think we might. In week 1, we got the better of the deal.
In week 1, definitely. I stayed up and watched half of Nico's game against Utah. To me, Utah really looked good last night, on both sides of the ball. But Nico did not. It was very much a lot of overthrows, a lot of the same stuff we saw last year at UT. And then flipping to UT, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what to expect. I expected our defense to play well, but I did not expect Aguilar to look as good as he did. Now, were there mistakes? Absolutely. Is there stuff to clean up? The high misses were a concern for me, but those are coaching moments in a 45-26 game that they can go back this week. A lot of defensive adjustments can be made this week going into week 2. Of course, they play a very, a weak opponent next week in East Tennessee State, but then you look to the following week, and then that's when we're going to find out a lot more about Joey and what he's got, because they got Georgia in 2 weeks. So it's a very good start. And like I saw the post-game interview with Heupel, he said, let's go 1-0 every week. That's the goal. And that's every coach's goal, to go 1-0. But I don't think the start could have gotten off any better. the running game. Of course, you got to replace Dylan Sampson, and there's a three-headed monster out there with Star Thomas, the Bishop kid, and Peyton Lewis, and they looked phenomenal.
They did look phenomenal. You got three. You look at Dylan Sampson and what he left when he leaves. What how he did with all the yardage he had and the touchdown he had. But they got a three-headed monster now. They look pretty good. But I think what impressed me most about Aguilar is we talk about his high balls for a minute. His high balls, I think, maybe due to nerves. First game playing in the SEC. But you look at Aguilar, his deep ball. He hit Staley in stride there for an 80-yard touchdown, and Staley never ever had to slow down or anything. And last year, you look at Nico, had problem hitting that long, deep ball like that.
Absolutely. And, we didn't exploit it anymore after that. There wasn't that many more deep throws that was made there. So I think Heupel kind of reined it in a little bit. He knew what he had. His zone scheme running game was there all night. So he was just going to push as much as they could. They were going to run the ball and not try to show anything to get anything on tape. But that one deep ball, he couldn't have walked it out there and handed it to him any better.
But, talking about other teams that played this week in college football, and, there's a couple of good games tonight that's on. But you look at the one that really makes my kind of makes my year to start off really good, right, is you can't have Florida State and Alabama both lose, but that would be the great thing to happen, and which don't happen, but it's okay. But for Alabama to come out in week one, and you look at a Florida State team who's not ranked, and Alabama comes out ranked 7, and Florida State just really just takes them to the woodshed and puts it on them.
It looked like to me that Alabama didn't get off the bus, and Florida State hit them in the mouth, and they didn't have an answer for anything Florida State done. The Castellanos kid looked exceptionally well, but very shocking that they handed Kalen DeBoer the keys to a Cadillac, and he's kind of turned it into a Pinto. At this point, he may turn around and they may win the rest of the games this season, but it's very concerning if you're an Alabama fan, which I'm not, to see he has lost to 4 unranked opponents already. Nick Saban only lost to 5 his entire tenure there. So it's in T-Town, in Tuscaloosa, I'm sure there's a lot of concern right now. And, they reap what they sow.
But I tell you what the funniest thing is, and it's not just Alabama's fan base or Tennessee's fan base. Every fan base, if a team comes out and they start out 0-1 or 0-2, here comes the Firebirds, right?
Yes.
Everybody wants to be fired. What's his buyout? Kalen DeBoer sitting back and he's getting paid $90 million regardless if he coaches or not.
His buyout $70.
Yeah, so you look at that. Alabama's going to turn it around. They always do. It's Alabama, right? They're loaded with talent. They'll fix it. They'll fix the ship, and they'll win some big games this year. As long as when Tennessee rolls into Tuscaloosa, they don't have a great game, I'm okay with it.
And I was watching Sam Acho before we got here, and he was showing some video of some Alabama players that was just jogging down the field on one of Castellanos' runs. And that's something that you did not see in a Nick Saban coached team was jogging. It was get to the ball as quick as you can, tackle the kid as quick as you can. There was no lackadaisical action there. But if these pundits out there and these players are seeing this, it has to be concerning as an Alabama fan.
Yeah, and Jonathan, if you don't go through those college scores right there, you go right ahead.
Yeah, so you had Austin Peay with a big 34-14 win over MTSU. Western Kentucky with a 55-6 win over North Alabama. Tennessee Tech wins big over Cumberland, 65-0. Vanderbilt came out with a big win. That was a big win for Vandy. Can Clark Lee take that next step to where his players can rest in the third and fourth quarter? And they did that, last night with a big 45-3 win over Charleston Southern. Of course, we touched on it. Florida State with a big 31-17 win over Alabama. LSU with a good game last night defensively. They just hounded Klubnik all night long. LSU beat Clemson 17-10. And, of course, the Arch Manning era didn't get off to a very good start yesterday. Ohio State beats them 14-7. I still think it's got some fans in here. But for me, for Arch, that was his first true road games start. So I'm going to give him a little leeway. From what I saw, of course, I was watching the Tennessee game back and forth a little bit. He looked rattled. Ohio State had him off schedule a lot. And I don't put all the blame on Arch. It seemed like Sark didn't have a very good game plan. There were several times where he went for it on fourth down and didn't have the right play call. So, I'm not going to blame Arch for all that, but it's really concerning with all the hype and everything. And then I'm sure they're going to right the ship there. But again, week 1, you start out number 1 in the country, you're 0-1. Your margin for error drops quickly.
Yeah, here's what I liked about Arch Manning, though. And me and my wife talked about this, and she brought it up to me, and he said, it's a great point. Arch Manning himself, though, even said that he's not proved anything yet, right? I'm getting all this hype, and I'm not even started a game yet, So kudos to that young man. It comes from the tutelage he gets from Arch or from Peyton and those guys and Eli and Archie. But it's, just listening to him talk, though, he's like, don't give me my kudos till I deserve it,
right.
And yesterday he did not deserve it. He didn't have a very good game.
No, and you look at all these hype builders, and that's what it is. Until you're proven, you've got to get out there and do it. We didn't know what Hendon Hooker had a few years ago, and look what he did. Right. And you start out on the top of the mountain, and like we've always said, it's a quick fall once you're at the top of that mountain. So they're going to go back to the drawing board. And I feel like that they will right that ship, and Arch is going to be fine by the end of the season.
Yeah, and looking at a couple of the scores from today, South Carolina beat Virginia Tech 24-11, and a big matchup tonight. Notre Dame and Miami is 0-0 to start the first quarter. And you look at Notre Dame, Miami with the Carson Beck reign starts in Miami tonight. He seemed like he's been playing at Georgia for 16 years, and now he moves on to Miami. But it's great to. College football's back, man. There's nothing better than college football.
No, there is not. Of course, Pro kicks off Thursday with a big matchup with the Eagles in Dallas. Of course, me being a big diehard Dallas Cowboy fan, we got kind of punched in the gut over the weekend with the trade of Micah Parsons, but we're going to live with it. And then you look tomorrow night, the Bill Belichick era begins at North Carolina. Yeah. Chapel Bill, as they're calling it.
Chapel Bill.
And that to me is a very interesting. It's just very interesting altogether. You've got a 70-plus-year-old coach coming back to coach college. Has coached pro all his life, probably, if not the best, one of the best head NFL coaches ever. And now he comes back to North Carolina. How is that going to how is recruiting going to really, come out at North Carolina? So that's an interesting matchup tomorrow night against TCU.
Yeah, but give Belichick kudos. He comes into Tennessee and snatches away the kid from DCA, the tight end from Tennessee, and gets him to recommit to North Carolina. So kudos to him. But
that we saw in the hole the other day, that's a very quick, very big kid.
Yeah. So Jonathan, once again, week 3 of Dugout Dads complete. Week 2 of high school football. Week 1 of college football. This is just getting started, right? It's getting better, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And once again, we want to thank our sponsors, Kobe McKinney with Underwood Realty, for being our title sponsor. Hashtag Hollies and Be the Gift for our Dugout Dads Player of the Week, and Infinity Promotions for doing our backdrop and our tablecloths and all of our apparel. We appreciate those guys. And also, we'd be remiss if we don't thank Acapulco Grill for having us out here, right? Logan and his crew does a great job. We appreciate them having us out here and letting us be here and have our show here. So, once again, we appreciate Acapulco Grill as well.
Yes, and we also appreciate we had some viewers out here today. We're doing this every Sunday, 6 p.m., starting now. So, we'd love to have you come out. Stay tuned for our, student segment that we're going to have where we want students to come on and talk from different sports. So, and again, we talk about football, but we've got golf, we've got soccer, we've got all other kind of sports that are volleyball that are playing right now. So stay tuned. We're going to try to have those coaches on as well. And Michael, this is our 3rd week of season 2. So I'm excited to see where this season goes.
Once again, so for Matthew Inyard, our producer, myself, and Jonathan, we appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate you guys that come in and give us comments. But from the Dugout Dads, where our skills are questionable,
But our spirit is unstoppable.
until next time.